Hello? Is anyone there? No, I'm fucking playing. What's up, Team Mouse Party? Hi. Hello. Echo. The fucking bot's not here yet. This piece of shit. Y'all can't see yourselves. Stretching. Violent crimes made me cry. I might check it out. Could use a good cry every once in a while. It's good for the soul. Yo, bot tricks, what the fuck? Why is the bot like not fucking here? I swear, sometimes it's here instantly and sometimes it just doesn't know what to do. But I know if I go on the website and like ping the bot, it'll fucking... I think it'll like reset the overlay. Which is really annoying. Be patient, bro. Try to use less, bro. It'd be nice. I've been trying to get bot tricks to work and it's taken 10 minutes every time. That's the thing, is that for me it doesn't. I don't know, maybe today it's just off. But like usually it's like not even a minute and then it'll join. Or maybe like after like 60 seconds. And if it genuinely takes 10 minutes, I'll be angry. I'll be pretty annoyed. I don't know what the fuck I'll do. Can't exactly storm the headquarters. I'm pretty sure the whole website's vibe coded anyway. It's probably just 2 people. That shit runs terribly. I've never seen a website run so bad. Well, no, I have, and I can immediately tell it's not been optimized. It's just been put through one fucking pass of the GPT and then boom, it's sent out. Jesus Christ. Bro is lacking. Hi, what are we mad about? Do me a favor and check the lower left of the screen. Can you see the chat? If the answer is no, then that's what we're mad about. And the answer is no. So that's what we're mad about. Let me see if I can get something going here. Bottricks.live. And I have to re-log in every single time. Which is crazy. Well, I have to click the button at least. Get support. Chat bots. A lot of the time there is just like a manual join. Somehow Stream Elements came before fucking bot tricks, which is, that does not bode well. Let me just turn it off and on again. Maybe it'll just work. There we go. And then that chat message showed up, so that means this should simply work. And it does. Okay, cool. All right, we're good now. We're good now. All is well. Now, today, chat, the thing we will be breaking down is song 5 of 6 on the ye olde EP that, you know, this music shit ain't easy if you want it to go somewhere. Being burdened by the numbers and the comparison of other people around you is no small feat. You know, I mean, you can definitely shift your thinking to not have it affect you as much or whatever, but like you can only do that so much before the reality sets in. AI is bad. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir, buddy. Come on. All right. Well, chat's fixed. That's good. How is everyone tonight doing on this fine Tuesday/Wednesday morning? I hope all is well. BB No Money is bad. Are you high? Or have you been told to dislike BB No Money by the internet and you never listened to a single song? Good. That's good. 2 Mouse Party. That is good. Brother. You're not Muslim. I learned FL Studio's track mode and I'm so hyped about that. What? That's probably like a 20 something, like an FL24 thing or something. He downloaded a single song. Hi, Yowie Butt. Guys, there are more emotes. Get the BTTV extension at betterttv.com. And then when you get it, you can click the 3 dots in the top right of the chat, go to the settings of Better TTV, and then turn on the emote menu. And also auto live chat view so that you can see what we have in here. So I think I can just do emotes. And Stream Elements should respond to that. No, I won't. Never mind. Fucking Christ. Whatever. Ismail. I gotta change the name of this from Ismail to Aga, because that's what the name of the emote is, actually. I'll do that at some point. I just don't want to trip people up in the Discord who actually use it all the time. But it's called Aga. And then there's a variant where it wags its tail called Wagga. And then there's a variant where it wears a MAGA hat called MAGA or fuck! Whatever. That, Jesus Christ, I didn't think a name could be so long. What's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on the Thera? Fuck, I should have been logged in on the other account. I could just fucking DM him. Yo, Thera, what are your thoughts on yourself? No, but, he's cool. Makes a good music, and, pretty funny. Pretty funny. You might not know this, but, he's got a funny bone, and I think he's a fan of the Knicks. I'm not sure, though. But yeah. Ray makes music sometimes. How often is sometimes? Is it all the time? You just want to say sometimes to be more nonchalant and to fill the character count, or do you have other hobbies? Yes, he gave me 3 FLP breakdowns the other day. He's funny and cool as fuck. He gave you breakdowns? He's out here doing that shit? That's cool. Like once a week. I see. Is it because you only get to once a week, or like you only want to once a week? What's your thoughts on Streamer University 2026? Am I meant to have thoughts on everything? Like sometimes my brain's a little empty, you know what I mean? But what's it called? I mean, it exists. I'm not a fan. I don't care. You know, whatever. I hope it goes well, just for the sake of things going well. But I also hope it bombs. You know what I mean? Plunderphonics is good. Yeah, he makes some good tunes. Somebody commented on my EP. I forget which song it was. It's on one of them. I don't know. But they were like, yo, Athera said this is bad. I don't know what the hell he was talking about. This shit is fire. And I'm just like, Athera said this was bad? I didn't hear this. So I DM Athera, yo, I heard you didn't like my fucking music. And he's like, what? Okay, hold on. And he listens to the EP. He's like, no, it's good. And then he replies to the person, and he's like, who are you? And the person instant folds, just, oh, I'm just a nobody. I'm sorry. It was the greatest interaction. It was the greatest interaction of all time. I wish you would hit like on my shit, though. Maybe get some fucking algo boost, but whatever. Want to? I'm trying to learn hyperflip and Athera jersey. What is Athera jersey? I've never heard that in my life. It's going terribly. It does take a certain kind of neurodivergence to make this stuff. I mean, I will say for me, I've been making music for years before I started making hyperflip. And the music I was making was already pretty sample-based, mixed with EDM and various genres, and I was getting into like making jersey and stuff because I'm from that area. And I listened to dariacore for the first time, and it's a very cathartic experience. Like it's like I'm listening to myself, but from the future, you know. And then here I am. Add flanger and a lot of effects. I see. I think that's just a lot of people in the scene, though. I don't know. I'll ask about it. Zave liked one of my songs on SoundCloud, and it barely did anything to your stats. I mean, early on, it could do something, especially if people are just going through other people's likes. That's what I mean by like a tiny algo boost. Like, because one right person leads to another right person, leads to another right person, and then eventually you get a repost, and yada yada, this, that, the third. You know, it's basically a more glorified version of word of mouth. My left ear keeps popping. This is so annoying. Oh no. Oh no. It's every time I speak, too. Alright, whatever. without further ado, we're breaking down song 5 out of 6, High Bash. This song I made before all the other ones on the project, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm confident. Like I don't know. I think I was in a slump of like hyperflip related stuff or just music in general, as I tend to be. You know, sometimes you make like fucking 7 songs in a month, or maybe even more if you're like realer or someone. And sometimes you make a song in 7 months, and that just happens, right? And it's been like some time, and I was going through Samplettes. You know, I rarely use shit like that, but I was going through Samplettes to try to find like, I think I was trying to find samples to use for some complextro stuff, like some old funk, you know, some horn hits or whatever, right? But then I came across some old like J-pop from like the 2000s. It was very ahead of its time, but as a lot of stuff was in the 2000s. It's more like we haven't progressed as far as we thought we have in music if you really look back and see what was done. But I found a cool sample from a song called High Bash, and that's what this is. That's what this was built off of. The drop was, I listened to someone's SoundCloud who stole a bunch of dariacore songs and just re-uploaded them, no credit. And I listened to one of them thinking, oh wait, this is pretty good. I didn't know the source because I'm not really that tapped in as I had come to realize. But I steal the flow of that, and then the rest of this is all just guitar parts because I wanted to do another one of these like guitar things. Cause I made this directly after making Breadcore 1, which I did do some guitar in there. And so I was carrying that on. And then this project died for a few months because I couldn't think of how to properly do the breakdown. And then I did the breakdown, and then I didn't really like how it sounded. And then a few months later, I opened this project again. Why did Minimeters just fucking close? And what's it called? I come up with a different idea, and we're going to go into all of that. But first, we must play it from the top, as we always do around these parts. That's how this works. Let's get the playhead like here, and then let's go. Really quickly, I have to do something. I just remembered. Fuck! Because this isn't how it sounds on a project. Let me just, boom. I have a different FLP with all of these rendered out to WAVs, and I put some different, like, EQs on them. Breadcore 2 tracklist, I think. I put some different EQs on them because I felt like some stuff was louder than the other stuff, and I needed to like even everything out. And it was a very crude method of getting everything evened out. And I kind of regret doing it. And I might just replace the WAVs later, but I bash master. Okay. Then I can boom. Sorry, I know it sounded so hype. Let me just high bash master. High bash master. Come on. I have an SSD. That's what it's for. All right. Yeah, cool. I put it on here. It's just a singular EQ that's doing a little bit of that because I thought the high end was a little too much and the 1K was a bit too overbearing. But whatever. And then let me just put a clipper in here, and then a notebook 2, post render. Okay. Now we're ready. Pin to top. Yeah, it's pretty good. It took me forever to track that guitar, but we'll get to it. Gotta open everything up here. I'm concerned my PC froze. No, it didn't. I'm just talking to a brick wall. Okay, that's fine. But yeah, let's hurry up and get into this because it's gonna take a fucking long time. I can tell already, just because there's a lot going on, kind of, but not really a lot going on. Like from here on out, it's straightforward, but you know, it's some regular schmegular hyperflip up until that point where I decide to get all fembread with it, just because I don't know. It's the way I make music. But yo, lurk check, press 1. Just doing a little look, I get a little insecure sometimes. I'll open up. I'll be honest. Thanks, Kirby's Eyes. You're always a real one. Okay. So Jesus Christ. All right. We go left to right, top down, section by section. So we're going to start off with this little bass line that I made. Very simple stuff. I guess since we're going top down, I'll explain this. Oh, and yeah, that works. Are you like a year back in the stream? Damn. There is an EQ2 that's basically just a gain increase that plays for the drops, which is this. And also plays for the ending. You're in class? Jesus Christ. You don't gotta do that to yourself. But yeah, this thing, it's a simple Songle serum patch, just basic Moog, moving around with some saw with a little bit of sync on it, and a German low pass for some more tone. Barely really changes, but just makes it kind of louder in the mix. And then these vocals, which I'm scared I'm gonna get super claimed for this, but whatever. The vocals are, I'm so glad I just randomly found them. It's fucking great. They're really good. Is the preview still on? No, it's not. My PC was like bugging out for a second there. So yeah. It's a bit lossy. So like you'd probably like imagine that's like an issue, but not really. Step 1 for this vocal is a noise gate that I do with Maximus. You can do this with the limiter's noise gate feature, but I just like seeing the noise gate and like doing it myself like this and then adjusting the knobs later as I see fit. Just to like, because there's a lot of like bleed from the instrumental, and so it kind of like mitigates that and like tightens everything up. It's nice. And then there are all these harmonies on the side, and I could just, turn this knob up for that, but I choose instead to use this mid-side compressor, which is a patcher preset in FL, quite useful. But as you can see, I'm not like fucking, what's it called, super like stereoizing it. Like these levels aren't that even. That's not on purpose. I don't know why I did that. I couldn't tell you. But I am compressing the stereo a little bit, so it's like more, I don't know, leveled. And then we do all this shit to it. So single band compression, quite compressed to mitigate the whole lossiness. And then I turn the gain way down so that I can hit the multiband compressor properly. That's really just a byproduct of me making this preset terribly, but I always do it, and it's just a part of my process now. And the goal with this is to squash the high end, just flatten it completely. Like you can see here, it's just perfectly just kind of like haircut, trimmed off. That's how much is being compressed, The mids are pretty natural, and like maybe I touch on the lows a bit, but like I just chose not to for some reason. So shut up. So it brings the crispness up a little bit, and then of course you got to give it a bit crush, just slight, to further like, you know, bring out the high end, give it some excitements, and then we put it through an EQ and a de-esser. The de-esser is actually like doing an okay job at doing its job. The EQ, I'm just bringing out all the mids and stuff. But the high band of this Maximus is really where all the work is being done, the 10K and above range. There is a saturator with a really low ceiling and like a really high gain going into that ceiling, which is really just a pretty crude way of doing high-end excitements, or exciting the high ends is what that would be called. But yeah. And then we have this delay thing, which is just a wet-dry split. A bit nerdy, but like whatever. With a delay on 4, so quarter notes. And then I'm EQing the wet signal, just to like dial in like what I really want it to sound like. So I go like walkie-talkie mode first. And then after that, I put it through this, which mitigates a bit of the walkie-talkiness. Kind of undoes what I just did a little bit, but like just cleans it up a bit, because I'm going to make it louder later, right? So I got to be aware of that. And then I have this compressor on both the wet and the dry. With like a shit ton of release. So it's not really like heard in the vocal itself. Maybe a little bit. Like it makes it a little snappier sounding, but it brings the delay up in a more controlled way. So it's not like getting in the way of the dry signal, but you can hear the tail of it like pretty pronounced. It's nice. And then I put it through one of these, which just makes it slightly louder. And a little bit of crunch at the top end of volume, but not like too much. And a balance is needed to like cut things off at the ends. And then in the second half, when everything else starts playing, it gets louder with this automation clip that controls nothing, actually, because I disabled it for some reason. Wait, no, never mind. Yeah. So that it like, because everything else is going to start playing, so it's like, it's got to be balanced for that. You know. And now this part, the second half of this, it's where I start adding in another bass on top of the bass. But really, the magic happens in the drums. This break, it's labeled Electro Break because I got it from a song that I never released. Boom. Let's Room Lead is probably gonna get scrapped, let's be real. Got a break. I just didn't like how lazy the fills were in the drops. I might go back to that project at some point and like redo it, because the samples are really, it's a cool idea, but whatever. I got that break and just kind of put it in here. And I'm pretty sure the source of it comes from, let me find the folder, Rhythm Lab Ultimate Aim and Breaks Pack. And whenever I'm in here, I always go to just sample the remix and just cut these up instead of like going in here and dialing what sound I want, because I'm not like that much of a nerd. Where is it? I'll find it, I swear. Okay, it's not in here. It's in Jungle somewhere, and I don't feel like looking for it. I'm gonna be so real. But it's from Jungle, and like a lot of compression, distortion, and all that sort of good stuff. and just slightly EQing it because it's already processed, so I don't really need to do much in this project. And I kind of wish I had the foresight to open the FLP and show how I process this break, but I don't, and that would take too long to open, and I don't feel like doing that, so I have to settle for this already completed version, and then we have some claps coming in. You know, fucking, and then the classic. I'd spam that shit all the time as like a little impact for the pre-drop. I know I go top down, but like this is also a percussive element, so I might as well just, you know, exhaust, car crash, classic. Classic. Very simple. I don't think there's much really being done to these samples to make them sound the way they do. Yeah, just some like, this one's like being low pass as a more clever way of fading it out, and then the exhaust itself, literally no processing. That's a cashmere sample, baby. Right, so it's bass time. And these two interact very nicely. Nice and crunchy, super cool. It's the bass from earlier. But with a slight EQ to like accentuate the parts that I want to be heard, because it's going to be played over with some other bass below it and cutting the low so it doesn't really interfere much. And I also did this really nerdy 20 hertz cut on this part of the equalizer, which I do use sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. I was going to do something like this, but like when played over that bass, it just completely disappears. You can hear it there when those two playing, or when those two are playing, but like it's just not the vibe I want. So this is my, I'm pretty sure this is just the bass that's in my preset, like for FL Studio. Whenever I open a new FLP, this is the first bass that's in here because I use it so often. It's pretty good. Oh fuck, there's so much shit on my MIDI keyboard. You know, noise, saw, distortion. Doesn't get much further than that. But as it stands, it's quite squarey. As a result, oh yeah, and also there's an LFO tool with the chorus pitch sort of on envelope to give it that impact. Otherwise, it just starts, you know. But you know, it sounds quite squarey, and to really like get it all bassy how I want it to sound, what I do is something quite, I don't know, ghetto. The Maximus, I call it saw bass fix. This is also on my preset because of how often I use this on this specific patch, where I take a Maximus at like 100 and something hertz, like 160 some shit. Let me go ahead and make a new version of this FLP so that I have an evaluation copy. Which takes the low end and just flattens it completely. As a very sort of crude way of, what's it called? Of getting the sub to be even, you know. Don't do anything to any of the other bands. I don't put on linear phase. I could. But I don't. I don't really care that much. And then I EQ it the way I usually do. This time with a bit more sub than usual. A massive gaping cut at 300 to make it feel subbier, and you end up with this. And it is just straight up hard clipping into the master, because of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? No gain increase. There is this fucking monstrosity of an EQ on the master that I put on. I'll get to that shit later. Which maybe I shouldn't have put on, but whatever. You're not really meant to do that EQing the master, it'll make your shit sound worse on like bigger sound systems and things like that. It introduces like sometimes unwanted phase differences, sometimes wanted phase differences, but you just have to be aware of what it is that you're actually doing when you do some shit like that, you know. And then with the bass and the breaks and the we're getting up, we're hyping up, we're moving up in the world, all this sort of shit. And then I have this thing. There's a lot going on, I guess, but just some sort of ARP shit that I do like all the time where I'm just kind of layering two sort of counter melodies and then they like swap ears in the panning, very fucking nerdy stuff. If I take off all these effects, it's as simple as that, honestly. Just two saw patches. I didn't even change from the default wavetable. Obviously, the random's turned all the way down. By default, it's not, which is kind of annoying. But I guess the plan was to just like keep these like one slight right and one slight left. And they take turns sharing a gap too. You know, they're kind of talking to each other in that way, which is nice. Cool. So, are the effects for these the same? Kind of, not really. So I guess we'll go into like one at a time, which is going to be a little annoying. One of your ears will be getting touched at a time, and it's an odd feeling, but just bear with me here. We first single band compress it, not too much, just, you know, enough to like even things out. And then I put it through a nonlinear filter, as I always do. Not on max drive, because I guess I didn't want too many overtones, but like... it adds a bit of tone. It just adds a bit of tone, which is nice. And then I mix in a trance gate, like 3/4 of the way mixed, because I love doing this shit. It gives it groove. You know, whatever. And then the coup de grace, the LFO tool with the pen all the way up, and then I'm just fucking doing this shit for some reason. And then, what? Why are there two of them? Why are there two of them? They're both at 3, which is dotted ace. Neither of them are ping-ponging. What? Sounds cool. Okay, yeah, sure. I can't explain that one. I don't know why I did that. Maybe I wanted these two filters to interact in a nice way for some reason. Maybe I wanted the delays to be on different ears, but then I chose not to. I can't explain this one. It's just like this. And then the other one. Same sort of deal. Single band compression. It's a bit stronger on this one. You can kind of hear it more, but like, you know, the idea is to let the attack kind of take its time to make things sound snappy, you know, and compressed in the way that you would expect a compressor to sound if you just like slap a default one on. Slight EQ with a focus on mitigating these lower notes. If I had foresight, I would just link the velocity of this to like the volume or something and then just do it in a piano roll, but I can't be fucked. Nonlinear filter, as always, for some tone, trance gate again. And then the LFO tool, which is panned the opposite way of the other one. And this same shit again. I just copied this over because I thought it sounded good. I don't know what the hell I was smoking, but it must have been good. And we were most of the way there, except for some reason the left ear, like it gets like quiet and then loud because I panned these beforehand. I'm so dumb. What the fuck? Whatever. And then it gets all loud and crispy and isolated. It sounds fucking like there's way too much high end, but you know, it's meant to be mixed with everything else and like clipping and all that other stuff, right? So I kind of mixed it with that intent. I'll just drag this all the way down so I remember that it's meant to be turned off. And then, you know, go the preset again, single band compression on both of these. Super harsh. Wait, why is it muted? Oh, that's why. Which I think mitigates the whole getting louder and quieter sort of deal, which is what a compressor's meant to do. Same thing, getting that high band really up there with a multi-band compressor. I just fucking flooring the gain upwards, because of course I do. And I have to bring the gain back up with this master gain knob. Slight bit crush, because bit crush and saws sounds really cool. It's a little less slight than on the vocal, but like, you know, it gets the job done, right? EQ and de-essing. I also de-ess on synths to get rid of things that are traditionally annoying to the human ear. Which doesn't really do much in this case, but it's there anyway. Then another transgate, which gets half mixed on. For more of that groove, and it's cooler because it comes after the delay and, you know, whatever. LFO tool, which is, again, slightly panning it for some reason. Because you can never have too much stereo. Yes, you absolutely can. But you can never have too much stereo. And if we get louder... And then we have to shut things up at the end at some point, so that's what the balance is for. And then this was meant to clip everything, but that's like a little too much for me, and I just disabled it instead. So that's that. That's super sparkly sort of ARP. And then we bring these vocals back in. I tend to hit licks like this all the time. I don't know what it is about my brain and how it perceives music, but like, you know, very simple. I could have done this with 3x oscillator, but I wanted to use more CPU for some fucking reason. Oh, because I wanted to use the basic Moog as like a slightly different sounding sawtooth than your average sawtooth, but like not that slight, but slight, you know, it's whatever. Fucking like, I don't know. I tend to do unnecessarily fancy shit like that all the fucking time. Hold on. What if... Yeah. Jesus Christ. And then we're making it really loud because we're Black Summer. For some reason. And mitigating some of the lower notes. Because we're making it really loud and then putting it into this gaming sauce. It gets a bit crunchier at the top end of volume. You know, it does that for some reason. It's because it just clips everything, and I turn the gain way back down. So it sounds really cool like that. And then... Okay. And then I bring the high end back up, but, you know, obviously from 15K to 20K, I want it to dive off a cliff for some reason. But I just wanted that ringy sort of high-end sound, you know, as like a default plus sort of deal. And it's drop time. It's gonna take a bit. We'll do that first. This little half. Right. So, let's start off with the drums, shall we? Simple. Pretty simple, I think. I don't know. It's just like, it's just the more the ga, You know, the ga the ga is pretty at the is like at the center of most, or like the ga. That's the groove. That's the whole groove, and you just do shit around that. You know, it helps if you've made beats before. Definitely helps if you've made beats before. But like, you know, it's just some sort of groove thing that I just feel when I'm doing it. I couldn't explain to you like the inner mechanisms of like all the intervals of the beats and all that shit, but like what I can tell you is this kick is from a Jersey club pack. And well, it doesn't sound like that. It sounds more like that. With the fucking Twerk Nation kick preset put on it, because I spam that. And it sounds really good on specifically Eminem kick 10 decibels. Which is what this is called for some reason. I don't fucking know. But yeah. Cool. You know, I use that kick, and I don't sidechain it all the time because that'd be overbearing, I think. I only sidechain it when it's at like an important part of the groove, like at an eighth note. You know, I don't really sidechain the 16ths, just the eighths and like, you know, all of the chord note stuff and whatever. And the snare, I don't even fucking know. A lot of the time, I tend to just like take a snare I've already made, which in this case is this. And just kind of add shit to it afterwards and make a new snare out of it. So there's no processing done on this. No, it's just straight from my pack, which is not out because there's like nothing in it and I barely add to it. It's only like whenever I need a specific sound, do I make a sound on the spot and then I'm like, oh, it's probably good to save, and then I save it for later. But I can tell you that these like perk sounds are from a Dembo pack that I downloaded a while ago that had just a lot of nice random ass sounds that are nice for making snares out of and other, you know, percussive elements and all that sort of stuff. So this is fucking this little tonal thing. It's really fucked. I just EQ'd the part that was the most annoying so it would get the most distorted when I put it through a distortion. And then yeah, okay. Made the high end really overbearing so that could get distorted into a nonlinear filter with the max drive and saturation. And I don't know why this is like not all the way mixed. I think it's a mistake. But let me just pretend it's always been that way. And then I bring the high end back, which it's just a bit more of a shaped high end for what it's trying to do. So you get that snare. And I wanted to do the thing that I heard on, I think it was Caution by XXXTentacion, where it's like a snare that goes, you know, there's like some sort of like beep afterwards. It's kind of wanted to mimic that. And this is just one of these sounds that I've shortened, and then I put through a pretty aggressive compressor. I say aggressive because, like, for some reason I thought it would be a good idea to not have an attack on this. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why. But I guess it works, so whatever. And then I distort that, and then I EQ that. Barely. I just cut the fucking lows. And then that's that snare. Oh. There we go. And, you know, a little fucking... little snare fill, which I think I bit crushed. Yeah. I like bit crushed and put through like a low cut just to make it a bit more stylistic. Because I have a more bit crush sort of sound. I just kind of like that. And then this is just a V-dub snare. I don't think I EQ'd it at all. Yeah, no, hopefully fucking not. And this is just a default 707 tom from FL Studio. and I'm on FL12, so I have to manually automate the volume. So like, you know, shit kind of sucks, but it's my workflow, right? And this is one of the few times I will actually use OTT in a project. I tend to avoid it just because a lot of the time I would prefer to shape the sound myself rather than have the OTT sound, you know, to make things sound a bit more natural and intentional. Again, nerd shit, complete nerd shit, but like it's the way I go about doing things. And so I distort the crap out of this, of course, and then OTT on like 54 depth. What is that? Yeah, 54 depth, and you know, for the OTT sound specifically because I just wanted that. I could have put a sound godizer on it, but like I wanted the OTT sound, right? So, and then slight EQ. Nothing fancy. And the way that this is cut too, the transient is not playing for this one, but it is for this. Reverse kick to go back into the... And then... fucking... I have a snare, which is a combination of snares. The first part of the snare is some fucking... snare that I had that I replaced the beginning part of it with a V-dub snare. So I'm basically just using the beginning of a V-dub snare here. And then this is... I got sent this snare by... I don't even know if she goes by this on the internet anymore, but Ardabe shouts out sort of deal. I got sent that snare, and it's pretty useful. The fundamental is a little short, but like, you know, it works for what it's doing, and combining the two makes a nice little sound. So no processing on the V-dub part, but on this, just a bit of mitigation on the high end. And I don't EQ the lows for some reason, although I probably should have, but whatever. And then, you know, I just use the beginning of this because if I use both, it'd bleed in. And you would kind of lose the charm of the... one of the greatest fills of all time, arguably. So it is cut a little more intentional, like, you know, kind of like a break would be, but it's the bottom, it's the rim shot, you know. Crazy. I can't stop giggling whenever I play that sample. It's just such a joke, but see, get it because, okay, I'm sorry. So I compress it, you know, with enough time for the attack to... Oh yeah, I can pause. With enough time for the attack to, you know, let the beginning part play out first to give it this like spike, you know, this peak, and then just compress everything below that, you know, which is usually how I handle drums of most kinds to make them sound all snappier and give it more of an impact, you know. And then I bit crush that. And then I EQ that, you know, with an emphasis on the high end and, you know, kind of mitigating this fundamental, sort of. And I fucking compress that. This time, though... Wait. Yeah. This time, though, I don't have an attack, but for some reason, it's enough to still let the peaks come through. I've never understood how that works, but it works, I guess. Just a slight compression to like bring things to volume after the fact. You know what I mean? And then copy that groove again, and then I just fucking... I don't know why I named this snare Cat at Kmart. If you know who Cat at Kmart is, or if you are Cat at Kmart and you're watching this VOD, I'd... What do I say? Make better music? I don't know. But, I don't know why I called this snare that. But I just made a snare and put a convolver at the end of it so I could have some more room. Because originally the snare sounds like, Oh, because I named the snare Dog at Best Buy. But then I just renamed it wrong. There you go. That's why. That's why. Whatever. And I do tune my snares all the time, depending on like whatever key I'm in, because again, nerd shit. There's a lot of nerd shit going on in a lot of my music. You know, very simple break fill that I got from... This one I actually did get from Rhythm Lab Ultimate Aim and Breaks Pack and Sample and Remixed. And then the fucking Cashmere Big Snare 5. Because of course. Because why not, right? And that's the drums. Jesus Christ, I'm gonna go into fucking everything else. And the groove changes every single time, which is kind of the selling point of this song. I use a different bass than I would normally use, slightly, but it's not that different. Fucking, I guess I call it Watch This, because I was making this on stream. So I would change the waveform of this from the sawtooth to what I call subby wubby, where I forget exactly how I made it, but I made it. And you could do it with 2 sine waves, and one of them is like up an amount of harmonics, and then you would just render that out and then like put it as a wavetable in Serum, and then I just have it saved in user. I changed the noise from AC Hum 1 to bright white, so it's a lot brighter and whiter. That's how it sounds normally, you know. And then I put a little notch filter in it. And I forget where, huh? Let me... It's a knob change, I swear to God. Yeah, like 300. To make things sound subbier, which is usually what I'm always doing, because bass, right? And again, saw bass fix. I guess this is turned off. I remember that. To make the low end like consistent, and then we bring that low end back up, and again an egregious cut at 300. For a real fat bass, real fat bass. And then we bring in this thing to layer on top. Watch this too. Awesome. My naming convention is so good. Really quickly, is the curve for this changed? No. Yeah, okay, actually it is. Also, the coarse pitch on this is slower than it is on here to give it even more of an impact. You know, less of a click, more of like a thump, if that makes sense. And it's the same speed, if I recall, on the Watch This 2, which is the harmony. Which is 2/5 stacked on top of each other with a bright white. Pretty simple stuff. But the same, since it's cloned, I have the same distortion and notch filter and the same noise. Going on 2 solids that are stacked on top of each other, an octave apart and on the 5th. I don't know why I didn't just, since they're the same note, I could have just played a 5th up, but I think I was like experimenting with how I wanted it to sound and yada yada. But whatever. And I put the bright one on it, the bright white on it, Jesus Christ. And then distort and notch. It's not as stereo as I'd like it to be. I don't know why that's the case. I think I'm just stupid, but whatever. And I don't think the detune is that overbearing. It's like, yeah, wherever this is. And then I kept it on linear. Didn't do any like super nonsense on this one. Not that it's nonsense. I do that shit all the time, just not this time. Put it through a clipper, you know, bring the gain up, make it all crunchy. And then this is a peak controller, which controls something down the line. It's a surprise mouse tool that we will reference later. An EQ that does nothing but cut the lows in a hard way, and then a nonlinear filter to shape things. I figured I shouldn't really bring back the high end because there's enough high end in this track anyway that like it doesn't really matter. And for the groove, it was decided by the bass. I remember doing this first and just cutting it up on the playlist itself to find the groove. And then once I found the groove, the saws were easier to do because I just like followed whatever this was doing. Saw time. Right. So here we go. Good old fembread super saws. Now, I don't know what in the world compelled me to choose this specific chord as chord 1, but I did, and that's how it sounds. It's like a 4th and a 5th, and then yeah, then like a 2 and a 3 on top of those to get that real dissonant sound. And then I just keep these 2 notes the same throughout the whole thing because, you know, it helps the chords feel like they're kind of flowing into each other a lot more. They're more connected. And then this, I'm pretty sure I just move this up an octave for the second chord. I tend to do that a lot. If I make a chord with like a lot of notes that are like not, you know, fifths or thirds or anything like crazy, like all the other like extensions, you can just kind of move them around in octaves on different chords, and like you tend to get some pretty cool sounds for if you're going from to, you know. And then I just added in one of these, which is the suspended 2 of this chord. You know, as like the lowest voice in the actual chord part. And, you know, dissonance, which helps it feel fat and helps it feel all super solid and fat without being bigger than it needs to be. You know, because I'm going to layer it on top of itself anyway. Hi, Biggie Boy. Welcome to the stream. You're the first message in a while, so I'm assuming a lot of people here are locked the fuck in or doing something else and locked the fuck in on that, which is okay. Gives me more room to speak, and it's not epic style, spamming the same bit over and fucking over and fucking over again. Working on music, that's why my profile change. Hell yeah, I hope it goes well. So the super saw stack, pretty simple. Oscillator A is an octave lower than oscillator B. The one that's an octave higher, I'm out for now. Thank you for stopping by anyway. Like the stream, please. The higher octave is more detuned than the lower octave, as per usual. You know, so you can still hear the note, but still have that like fat feeling. Again, kept it on linear. No OTT. It's on the preset that comes with like my starting preset for new FLPs. These 2 saws, and I don't know why I have OTT here because I never use it. I just don't. Which, if you get into making super saws, that's like the first thing you learn is like, oh, you know, you just detune 2 octaves, put OTT on it, and boom, you got a super saw. There you go. But I wanted to go a different way because I'm a contrarian. And I instead chose to, Jesus, what the shit. I never do this nowadays, but for specific applications, I guess I will. For the detune stuff, I tend to take the most like fat sounding kind of detuned ass, dissonant ass part of the frequency spectrum and push that, as well as sometimes like the low mids, but not a crazy amount. And then I just cut the 300 completely because, you know, I want it to feel real subby in the mix, and the highs stay where they're at. And then I take that and then I put it through a clipper. Which makes it sound way more crunchy and messy and, you know, all cool like. And then oscillator numero dos is just 2 saws stacked on top of each other with the random turned down and the phase adjusted to make a very specific sound. Because when they start at the same time, hold on, when they start at the same time, adjusting the phase will give you the different character each time. You know, by start at the same time, I mean the random turn all the way down. And I just chose that, I guess. It's pretty arbitrary every single time I do it. It's just based off what my ear likes that day, and my ear chose that. So for this EQ, I cut out a lot of the parts that the detune saw is taking up. I increased the high end because the high end is a little cleaner on the non-detune saws, and then I bring in some of the 300 that I cut out in the other patch. And then alright. Which is how it sounds with the EQ and everything. And then I put it through a clipper. Oh, it's epic style. Hello. Boom. Super fat, super loud, super saws. Awesome. And then I put these two into another bus and clip those together. Awesome. And then I EQ that a little bit. To like mitigate the high end a little bit, and then just like bring up all the cool like chord stuff, which is what that is. That's what my ear likes that day. That's usually what I perceive, like what I think to myself when I'm EQing. It's just like, I know the cool chord stuff is located at around here, and that's just what I push up and I bring down everything else. Not everything else, and not all the time, but just for this application. And then over the bass, it interacts nicely. You know, it plays nice with the bass, and that's the most important part, is that when everything comes together and starts clipping into each other, it plays nice and doesn't have like an ugly clipping sound effect, like an effect to it. That's kind of a thing with like people who are newer to hyperflip in general and they want to like push the volume. Their mixes are done in a way where when the volume is pushed, the clip just sounds ugly. Like there's not enough bass, or maybe there's too much bass, or the bass sucks and so it's not clipping in the right way, or whatever the case may be, and you get this like ugly sort of clipping sound. It's hard for me to vocalize what that sounds like, but I'm sure you've probably heard it at some point in time. And maybe if you've been making it for a decent amount of time, you might have heard it in like your older stuff. But traditionally, it's if the bass plays nice with all the stuff that's on top of it, and also vice versa, then you get like a more intentional sounding, more cool sounding clip. Crazy refresh pull. What is up, Kyle8676? We are breaking down song 5 of 6 in my EP, which didn't do as well as I wanted it to, and you can help. Yeah, welcome. So I have seen people say IRL one of my followers instead of friends, because Oomph means one of my followers, or it's always meant one of my followers, but then people just use it as a shorthand for mutual or one of my friends, which is really funny. So going top down, we now have this ARP here. Why'd you say sour instead of so? I said so, not sour. What is that? Why do you spell it like that? Anyway, now this is the ARP that I was talking about. The ARP. The thing that the P controller is affecting. Which I don't know why I have a P controller for this. Yeah, they'll through in this month, I heard. I'm so not caught up. I think I've only played like chapter 1 or maybe 2. And I'm very behind. And I don't want to get spoiled. But I'm going to get spoiled anyway. But yeah, that's cool. It's really funny how a lot of people who are Nintendo fans are actually just Deltarune fans. And so the direct tanks in viewership when Deltarune is fucking... Yeah, Luffy dies, thanks. Slight EQ, and then a balance that's not even doing anything. But yep, you're correct. But yeah, fucking. I don't know why I put the P controller on this. Like I was gonna do something fancy. I ended up not doing something fancy. But whatever. Yeah, views drop the moment it shows up. No, yeah. I saw like somebody posted a graph of the viewership, which is funny and also sad because the Nintendo kid is kind of a dying breed. But maybe that's for the fucking better because these Nintendo kids would defend that company tooth and fucking nail if they were ever getting harped on for doing something bad. Because they don't play any of because they're not competitive gamers, and it's usually they do something to fuck over some competitive scene of some game or whatever the case may be. But whatever. Watch Sacrifices of the Church of Nintendo if you don't know what I'm talking about. At Lemon Video. Insert Kane Parsons image. Lol. I still need to watch Backrooms. I still need to watch Obsessions, and I'm pretty sure by the time I get any money to watch either of them, it will be too late. But whatever. I'll see. My birthday's coming up soon, so maybe I can. My birthday's coming up soon, so maybe I can make something work out. Right. The ARP is just there to like add more shit to the shit. You can barely hear it in the final mix, but whatever. And then the vocals and the vocals and the. I hope I don't get super claimed for this because this is Hatsune Miku. It's. Oh God. What is it even called? I think it's Android Girl from Deco 27 featuring Hatsune Miku. It's like I discovered a lot of Vocaloid when I played Osu, and I'm kind of, well, just a lot of music in general, but like a lot of Vocaloid especially. And I don't really listen to Vocaloid like that, but I get it. I 100% get it. It's very cool. And I wish I listened to it more, but there's just too much music for me out there to listen to, so like it's hard for me to really like catch up, but this song did stick with me for a long time, and I wanted to, like, you know, put it in a song, and I figured, like, this is perfect. Just, like, a simple chop. And it's just that in perpetuity. Not doing anything really, like, super fancy with it. So, step 1 is noise gate, for some reason. I don't know why, because I'm already cutting out a lot of the shit that needs to be cut out, but whatever. I put a noise gate on there anyway. And then I do my thing. Single band compression. Really aggressive to bring it into volume for the multi-band compressor. Which is just bringing up the high end, like I always do with this thing. It's kind of my answer to OTT. I just do it, you know, more dialed. And also this patcher preset is all default presets, which is default plugins, which is pretty nice. A little bit of a bit crush, and then also I'm back. Oh, I figured, yeah. I just kept the essentials for this, cut out a lot of the low and a lot of the fundamental, and just kept like a lot of the higher stuff in, more walkie-talkie like, a bit of de-essing. Although there aren't that many sibilants to de-ess, so it doesn't really do much, but whatever. Oh boy, another epic style classic. Have you ever just fallen in the middle of a McDonald's while holding 6 waters and got drenched in water? No. So then I put it through a Game & Sauce, just to make it a little louder, a little crunchier, and then a balance for some reason. And then whatever this is for the next parts. What? Oh yeah, this is like for way later in the song. So we'll get to that later when it gets there. Happened to me once. Sounds riveting. And then, oh, you know what this is? You know what that P controller was actually for? Yeah, I put it on the ARP because I wanted to put it on the ARP initially, but then I decided against it, and I just changed the way the ARP sounded. But the P controller is really for a dedicated layer of noise. just to make things crispier overall. This is being put through a peak controller, which is you can barely read that, but it's on 0.8, or as close to 0.8 as I can realistically get to it, which is what the clipper is actually for, too. Like, yeah, it clips the sound, like the bass sound or whatever, like that layer, but it also evens out the level before I actually like EQ it and stuff, so that it can control this knob the way I want it to. Because when a balance is at max volume, the knob is at 0.8 or 80%. So anything above that is louder than max volume. So I need to do that. I need to put it at 0.8 if I want it to be like dialed. You know, and you can do that by clipping a sound at 0.8 and then putting it in the P controller. And in this instance, I didn't have to do any like fancy formulas or anything. Like it's just straight up 1-to-1. But sometimes I will have to do some weird shit like 0.8 times input. So it like goes up to 0.8, or like 1 minus 0.8 times input, or no, it would be 0.8 minus 0.8 times input, so that it would start at 80 and then go to 0. But I don't have to do any of that bullshit. I just have to let it go into 1, and it rocks. What's the most weirdest sample you came across while making this one? I didn't come across any weird samples making this one. There's nothing weird. It's just fucking the Jet 2 Holiday. I only found that sample because I found it on a whim, because the OG song was playing. I swear the OG song played like on the radio like a while back. But also, it was playing on the radio of this fucking Walgreens, and I was just like, oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna Shazam that for later, and then I did, and then I have it in a project now. Whatever. Oopsies, I did something wrong. Right. And then for the rest of the sound effects, that's the sound of somebody getting shined in Melee. Combine the shine sound with that sound, which is what also plays when you shine someone, and you know, sounds cool. Oh, so Fem. Oh boy, what's up? What do you think is the best sample in here? The one I just showed you, or maybe the intro sample? Oh wait. Because it made the whole song. So something happened. Oh boy, I wonder what happened. Sorry if I sound very dismissive right now. I'm getting my social battery drained, and I didn't realize that was possible through a live stream. You fucked and you got her pregnant. Oh boy, sounds fun. That's what I'm guessing. I'm just gonna read the option select here. Anyway, section 2 time. Very simple stuff, not too different from what came before it. So, what's it called? What's happening here is like this weird sort of kick clap thing that I'll do. I learned it by accident from making I Am Not Carbine. It was where is it? There's like a beta version of it, but I got really lazy, and what that is just a like a trap clap and so much bass just EQ'd into it. This time around I want it to be more conventional with it, Fast-paced, two-hollis beat. Yeah, okay. This time I wanted to be more conventional with it and just do a 909. Just very shortened, and then layer it with whatever the hell this is. Why is it that? Okay, yeah, processing. It's one of these sounds from the same fucking pack. This Dembo thing. Again, very useful for making stupid-ass drums out of it. So, the processing for this, because that alone sounds crazy. I wish you could expand, like, the view of this. You could see how high it really goes. But, so, Black Summer, if he had balls, mixed with, an EQ that would be normal if you're making, like, a hardcore kick, which I really wasn't, but, you know, I needed to add some sort of talk to it. You know, but there's a lot of sub. Which you can barely, like, hear, but it's definitely there. And it comes through when I do... Not really yet. You know, just super distorted. And then, I don't know why I thought this was a good idea, but I did the Convolver white noise thing. I guess I wanted to give it room, but I wanted to make it stereo too. Wait, no, hold on. Yeah, that's stereo white noise. Okay, whatever. Oh, there we go. That's how I got the stereo out of this. No, I didn't. What the fuck? Huh? Huh? I guess it would sound weird if I did that, huh? Okay, whatever. So, I am taking the mids and slightly compressing them and also EQing them. It's like just some more high ends. Again, you know, letting the attack come through to make it sound snappier. And the side is getting untouched for some reason. What was the point? Well, it has lower high end, I guess, to make it sound kind of even. In quotes. And then, there we go. And then we bring the bass back in a lot more. You know, a little fucking quarter pipe. This looks like a Kickstarter. But, it clips real nice. Even, like... By default, it clips pretty nicely. But with all the shit that I added to it, like, But this EQ alone makes it sound way bassier, and then making it louder just makes it clip, like, makes the bass clip even harder. You know, and then the EQ that I put afterwards. Super cool. And then layering that with a clap. Nope. You get the idea. And then a very simple sort of you know, these are just two 909s. They're the same hat basically, but treated slightly differently. So this first one, I put a transient shaper on max speed with a clip on it to give it a bit more of a click. You know, and then I took out the high end and made it more hat-like. And, you know, increased the stuff that really shapes the 909 part of it. And for this, same deal, except with more click on the transient shaper. You can barely tell because of how much high end there already is. I did try compressing it, and then I gave up. I didn't really care. And, yeah. Simple stuff. Simple stuff. And concept, you know. But actually getting there, it's like... You see the FLP, it's like, what the fuck? The flow is the exact same, I'm just adding in another layer. If I had $1 million, I could buy Arizona. Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking. I would never make it like this today. but these are 4 octaves and a fifth apart. 2 basic moogs, both detuned, but like a big one. I see. Bright whites, the same shit that was on the earlier stuff, because I just fucking alt-seed this shit, or the clone command, and then we clip, and then we clip. And then we EQ to bring in this more, since I know it's going to be clipped with the bass, so I have to keep in mind, like, I got to bring out the shit that I want to be heard through the clipping. Have you guys seen a video where the guy's ordering lube and there's a whole liter of it as an option? Yes. A whole liter? No, there's a whole, like, industrial crate and somebody skydiving with it as, like, a frame of reference. Lube companies are unserious, and it's the best thing for consumer markets, I think. Non-linear filter to, like, really shape things. Midde, side, simple. I'm compressing the side signal and then bringing it back up to volume so they roughly match, and you can see where the volume is hitting. There's no meter here, but your crosshair is a meter. If you look in the top left, you can see how high the volume is, and also some other number that I don't know what it's actually for. I think it's for, like, knob values, I'm assuming. Yeah, basically. But also no, because knobs don't go past 100. Whatever. Fucking weird. Yeah, we're hitting roughly the same, like, to kind of... You can also just see it in, like, your vector scope if you have one, which you can just get on Wave Candy. If the mid and the stereo is even. Like, here I can tell, like, the stereo isn't really clipping and the mid's clipping harder than the stereo, but, like, whatever, right? And then I mitigate some of the high ends for some... I mean, not for some reason. Just because I don't really need it. There's so much high ends everywhere else in the track that it's, like, it's kind of... I don't need it that much. I just need to cut the stuff that would take away the subbiness and then bring up some of the stuff that's, like, really annoying so that it pokes through the bass. And it also provides, like, this really beefy low-mid layer. That stuff, which is what makes it sound so much fatter in this section. Which is what makes the low end sound fatter in this section, like wider and, you know, more crazy. Which is nice for the 4 on the floor classic, like, fuck your buzz kicks, I'll make my own kicks sort of deal, like. Because imagine if I put a fucking buzz kick in there. Could you imagine how shit that would sound? God. Right. So next. It's the return of the ARP. This is incredible, by the way. I don't know if you know, but extremely impressive. Thank you. I'm glad you think so. It takes a lot of fucking time. It takes a lot of time and self-doubt, I will say. But, you know, you pull it through, right? Posted a Lube Life video when Jenna had to dig deep into my folder for this. Good for you. I'm going to continue this breakdown because it's going to take a long time. This is the thing, the same exact way that I was in the intro. You know, so if you weren't here for that, you just go back in the VOD. But it's the same ARP, just fucking brought it back. And it was already loud enough, you know, in the intro that, like, I didn't really need to increase the gain that much. And it was just, like, a nice background ARP, all stereo and stuff, tucked away in the mix, but, you know, audible enough to be cool. You know? And with the addition of this layer, the super saws kind of get lost. You know, but they're, again, the exact same as they are in their first half. No, like, change in chords or anything. No change in flow. That I'm aware of. I'm pretty sure the flow is the exact same. Right, and then the ARP is the same as well. And then I add this nice little lick. which I decided actually to just use 3x oscillator this time as opposed to getting fucking fancy and using a serum with a basic moog on it. Like, fuck all that stupid shit. But I think I put it in the same, no, I did not. No, it's in, yeah, dry ass synth. And it's delay on 4 or quarter notes and a slight EQ on the wet signal of the delay, as well as a low cut. Very simple stuff, and just increasing the input volume on these 2 notes specifically, so it goes nice, super cool. And then we're down to vocals, which this one Take K comes in. Oh. Super cool. I just kind of, this is one of those ideas where once you get it, it hits you in the center of the head, and you're like, holy fucking eureka. I probably should have said urethra to be funnier, but the joke's passed. And it just fit perfectly, essentially. So, do you have the sample that goes back it up? Probably. Back it up. Yeah, there you go. Anyway, so the vocal is processed like I would any other fucking vocal. Here we go again, right? That's why I call it the fembread and just have it as a patcher preset, because of how often I do this exact chain of events whenever I bring a vocal up to volume, where I compress the shit out of it, which is necessary for me to bring it into volume for this multiband compressor, which again, I could have just made the multiband compressor less shit, but whatever. I work with what I have and just kind of speed up. I don't know. A lot of the parts of my process are like, you know when you have like a kind of old house and you have to know the exact way to kick the door in to get it open, sort of deal. Like, that's kind of how I produce, you know? Like, there are little things that are wrong with my process that I know are wrong, and I just kind of like let it rock. Do as I say, not as I do. Don't do that. Like, if you notice you're wasting time doing a particular thing, or you're doing something in a tedious way that could be done in a more streamlined way, fix that, you know? Fix that in the process, nip it in the bud so it's not an issue later, right? But I can't be fucked, because it's like it's a 2 knob difference for me. Like, it's a loss of a few seconds, you know? It's not like anything crazy. And the idea here is we squash the high end and then bring the gain back up from where it was, and we squash the high end so that it plays nice with the bit crusher and the EQ later. And the bit crusher isn't doing much, because there's not that much high end to be had, because I'm fucking stupid and made this wrong, but it doesn't matter, because that's what EQ is for. And we're just kind of bringing in like the part of the vocal where most of the note is, which would actually be here, but like, you know, also kind of here. And I'm not really doing much to the high end, maybe just increasing it a tiny bit, just a little bit, and then a de-esser. You know, just to make things a little less harsh. Does it do anything? Barely. Enough. It makes the T and talk less fucked. Then we make it a little louder. Just a little louder. And then we make it a bit louder. Because of course we have to, because it's in a very loud song. And then I do this delay dry wet split again with the shit on 4 or quarter notes, and more walkie-talkie like. Which is just normally, like, if I was lazy, I would just make a copy of this and, like, you know, fucking put on a different track and like process that differently and like make it quieter, but it's just better to do it with a delay and like keep things more organized. And I don't know, sometimes in some cases it can just sound cooler because you'll have cooler ideas with it. But like that's how I do the little 1-2 sort of deal. Yeah, that's that vocal. And then Hatsune Miku comes back in because of course. Wait. Nope. My God. And, you know, I just put the exhaust back in for impact, as well as the white noise, which is following along to the pattern. You know. Right, this part. From here on out, this is really where I start to bang my head against the wall. Maybe not here. Maybe more like here. Because I remember when I made this, I had this made for like a couple of months. And then the thing afterwards, I didn't want to make it on stream because it would be embarrassing for me to try to track guitar for the idea that I wanted at the time. But then I did it off stream, and then I ended up not liking that idea. Whatever, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Fucking Christ. Okay, shut the fuck up. I'm talking to myself. So let's go left, right, top, down, like we always do. I think you should have used some previously lost media song here. Okay. So these drums. Right. Drumica is the plugin that I tend to default to whenever I make any sort of drum anything, because it is a good plugin. It is a good plugin. And oh no, please. Okay. Jesus Christ, that scared the fucking heebie-jeebies out of me. Like, damn. So it's a free VST where you can't tune the individual drums themselves or change the heads or anything like that, but you can change the mics. You can change the mics and you can change the room in which it sits, and you can EQ each of the drums and design the transients and things like that, and design the compression in here as well, which is nice. You know, you get some shit to play with. And you also have like presets for how the mics and the room are set up and how things are leveled, which can get you started, and then you can carry on from there, like change the room. I heard the desperate begging in your voice. I'm cackling. You don't know what it's like, I don't think. It's a lot, you know. It's like it's literally somebody's life fading away before your very eyes, and you're helpless to stop it. And then the Narcan works. It's like, oh, thank God. It's like I think that might be worse a little bit, but you know, whatever, right? Is how it sounds by default. How that thing happened to me multiple times low key with a Narcan part? Damn. Some life you live, huh? Very simple drum groove. The only fancy thing in here is like that little flam. And then later on, I do fucking pretty rudimentary, basic ass fill. Like, there's this meme where you can tell if the drums are MIDI, have they been done by a guitarist or not. I feel like this is a very clear example of that, because I'm not a drummer. And if you were a drummer, you would instantly know. But most people aren't, and I think it's reasonable enough to pass as like a very simple fill. Very clearly MIDI'd, but whatever, right? These are pretty good for MIDI drums anyway. And then we go into the fucking Sotarks 1-2s. And a little thing here. You know, little flam. And we just keep doing that in perpetuity. So the processing is really where the drums come alive, as they always would. You know, for drums, I tend to compress the ever-living shit out of them. You know? is the result of that. Hold on, I got an ad for seafood boil. I might not, hold on. But yeah, the idea is making the transients really nice and snappy so that when I bring the gain back up, not only does it sound like the room has gotten bigger and it's all like powerful, fucking Christ, but also the transients clip nicely into the master. Super cool stuff. You know, slight increase as the frequencies get higher, a dip in like around here for some reason, I think, and a dip in the subs, and an increase in the kick range. Hey guys, I'm crazy late. You did miss a lot, actually. This is the one of the few times where I'm like, okay, you actually did miss a significant part of the stream. But there's always a VOD, and I went pretty quickly, and I covered a lot in the time that I did, so the VOD will be pretty jam-packed with information. At least I hope. Your voice sounds like a semitone higher today. Thanks. I warmed up a slight bit before I started stream, because for the past few streams I haven't done that, and you know, to my detriment, right? But like, and also as I speak for longer periods of time consecutively, like for 2 hours straight. You missed the FLP almost crashing too. It's fucking crazy. You know, the voice drops over time, and it's also harder to hear like what I actually sound like when I'm wearing IEMs too. That's a crazy debuff they don't tell you about. But you know, we power through. But thank you for noticing. What's it called? I didn't change the gift this week. I just decided to keep it the Soundganizer for the sake of breaking down a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, which most of it has a lot of Soundganizers, except for this one, because this project is a lot older than all the other ones on the EP. And then I have this patcher preset called The Wash, which is exactly as it sounds. It's reverb, which I use delay for because it's a nice, crazy, washed out reverb sound if you turn the diffusion knobs all the way up. And I didn't do a wet-dry split for some reason. Normally I would, because delay in and of itself is a clipper for some fucking reason. It'll just clip your shit at 0, which is kind of annoying. You didn't change the gift this week unless it's just for the breakdowns. Are you delayed on the stream? Maybe hit the forward arrow a couple of times. And then a low and high pass sort of deal, which I think I'm just using as a high pass. But when it gets to this point, it starts to like... And then the actual breakdown starts. And I do like the classic like hardcore thing of just the fucking ride cymbal, and then reverse kick, and then all that crazy shit later on down the line. So guitar stuff. This part was very easy to do since it was just power chords. I had a different idea for what I wanted the what the hell? Oh, that's why. I had a different idea for how I wanted the drums to sound, so the guitar doesn't really match the drums actually. Like I wanted like a like that was the original idea, and I just chose to instead do 4 on the floor because it sounded cooler in my head. So for my guitar parts, I tend to use, you can actually hear the dry. I always track it dry. I used to track it with just the amp sound that I wanted and then process it later, but I found that to be a terrible idea if I wanted to change the amp sound. I would have to retrack the fucking guitar. So a lot of people do like 4 stacks for the guitars, like 4 instances of a guitar pattern, or like sometimes even fucking 8, like they quad stack it or 8 stack it. I don't do all that shit because it's so loud anyway. I'm pretty sure I can just get away with with double stacking it and just, you know, slight difference in panning. And if I recall correctly, these are the same patch. Yeah. So Tone Lib GFX is the amp sim of my choice. There are a lot better ones out there, but this one is free-ish. Like, it'll prompt you to register, and then you could just click no, which is really funny, and then just keep using it. It's kind of like MT Power Drum Kit in that sense, but I hate the sound of MT Power Drum Kit. Has a lot of, you know, useful presets and things like that. I just chose progressive lead because it had a nice frequency range that I liked. And in this patch, there is a noise reducer because while my guitar does have humbucker pickups on it, I'm plugging into a Behringer UMC22, which if you know anything about interfaces, you will know that is shit. So, and also there's some like ground noise somewhere that I'm not advanced enough to really diagnose and don't have enough outlets to start like unplugging and plugging and, you know, trying out different surge protectors and seeing like where the issue is being caused. But I know that if I plug in my phone or like touch the cable, the charging cable to my phone, there will be more noise coming through the interface, which is really funny. So there is a grounding issue of some sort, but fuck it, whatever. But that's what the noise reducer is meant to... damn. That's what the noise reducer is meant to mitigate. Because, like... hold on. There's just a little bit of noise in the quiet parts, which you can barely make out because I'm playing it all the time. But that's what it sounds like. That whining sound is not guitar feedback. That's my fucking interface. That piece of shit. But it's all I have, and you know, I'm not really like, I don't use it often enough to justify purchasing a new one, nor do I have the funds anymore, even if I wanted to, which I definitely could. I recently discovered a pretty good cheap interface that I heard is way better than anything Behringer has ever put out ever in their fucking lives. It's the oldest sample here, the first one. It's from like 2000 something. Before 2010, probably 08. Yeah. I did like the EP a lot. I listened to it while showering. Thank you. I'm glad to hear it. It didn't really make the rounds, you know, the way I wanted it to. It didn't really get out there, which sucks. It's unfortunate. But the people who listened to it liked it for the most part. So, like, I guess that's good, you know? It's really the whole point. Well, no, that's like point number 4. The whole point is having fun. But, yeah. Noise reduction is basically just a fancier noise gate. And then... a slight EQ and a soft clipper is enough to change basically the entire tone, which is really, really fun to play around with, you know. I'm pretty sure I was on the same pickup for both of these recordings. It's probably the... I don't know, the one in the middle. There's the neck, then there's the... I think it's the bridge pickup. Fucking... man, I'm so rusty when it comes to guitar terminology just because I don't play it often enough anymore. Because I spend most of my time producing, which is kind of sad. I want to be a lot better at the instruments that I've played over the years. You know, you would think that I would have some improvisational skill. I don't. It takes me a bit to come up with parts to write. You know, but then there's the bass. Which is just the guitar, but tuned down, not tuned down, pitched down an octave. Like here. And for bass, I don't really use any amp sims, because I don't have like a bass amp sim or anything. I'll just do it myself. I compress the fuck out of it. Just to even out the levels. And then Blood Overdrive, which gives it all its fizz. and then wave shaper, which gives it more fizz. Why I chose this, I couldn't tell you. I just know it sounds nice and distorted. And then we EQ it to make it sound subbier. You know, get rid of like anything like below like 40 because we really don't need all that. There's enough of that to go around, and then increase around like 100-ish, and then decrease 300 to keep it subby, and all the mid stuff to make it nice and real like dirty, and you know what I mean? And then we compress it again. And this is meant to, I don't know if this is like, no, there's no automation clip on this. I think this is just a cut for the sake of reducing more DC frequencies, but it's a pretty crude method of doing so. You'd probably be better off using like utility or something, but whatever, right? And when it gets to about here, I add in another layer. Nice ARP stuff. Basically written the same way I would write MIDI parts, which I've noticed over the years. As I've produced, I've definitely developed habits and ways of, you know, making melodies and such that just kind of make sense to me. And so it's this like counter melody sort of deal. And you can hear in that playing, I'm not that good. Like, I'm not that precise. I'm not a studio, like a session musician by any stretch of the word. But, you know, it adds like a crude vibe, like a demo sort of atmosphere, right? Like, it's kind of offbeat. You can hear me bending the string a little bit. Bad things for recording, but like, whatever, right? And it kind of just reminds me, I don't know why it does, but it reminds me of the intro to Party Tonight from Regular Show, like the higher melodies, which I can play all the way through. I learned it for a Battle of the Bands that was scheduled to happen before we knew what COVID would really do to the world. So it never happens, which is very sad, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, right? And for this, I think I just chose the same patch, I'm pretty sure. What the? With a slight EQ to, you know, clean things up, which I didn't do on the other one. It's just same patch, but, you know. And this one is definitely the pickup that sounds higher, which is basically the humbucker pickup, you know, which is better for higher notes, I think. I think I did that. I can't remember, honestly. Cool sounding. And then we do some more processing, right? I don't know what this is for. Good old fashioned wet dry split with the delay on 4 or quarter notes. And what I'm doing here for the wet signal is really trying to dial it in to make it sound like a delay pedal or something, you know, and not just like a delay from a DAW. So we accentuate all of the more distorted guitar soundy part of the frequency spectrum, and then we put it through a nonlinear filter, which is on max saturate or close to max saturate, to make it even more crunchy and more guitar-like. And then I think I do just a bit of mitigation of all the extra shit. Not a total mitigation of what I did earlier, because putting it through, it's kind of the opposite EQ, these two. Just a little bit of the opposite, but putting it through this, there's like a bit of a peak that forms here as a result of cutting. And it's like if I did this. No, it's... Oh, God. Whatever. I'm just going to assume it was there. It's like if I increase this, which I'm not going to do because you can't undo things in patch or NFL 12, which is so annoying, but whatever. I'm just not going to save, which I didn't do anyway, which is good. It's an evaluation copy. It's not even the original FLP. That's the wet signal. And then combine. It is clipping pretty hard into the master, but like the drums and all the high end the drums bring kind of masks that anyway, so it's like whatever. And then we put it through another EQ. Which doesn't really change the tone that much. It just kind of like I don't know, mitigates a lot of the stuff that's like really annoying because you can hear most of the ARP here anyway, right? So a lot of this stuff you don't really need. And then a balance at the end to like fucking to shut it the fuck up later in the line. And then this patcher is for later, which is just uber high passing it for like the breakdown part, which I did just, I'm pretty sure I copied. Oh, I did a retake? Oh, interesting. Whatever. I didn't copy it over this ARP. Which I thought I did. Would have saved me a lot of fucking time, but whatever. So yeah, that's that so far. And then we'll go into sound effects before I go into vocals, because why not? Good old-fashioned car crash, layered with this thing that I've been spamming the entire EP. Which is bubble up. Please! God damn, I have an SSD, that's what it's for. I know I spelled it right. It's that, but reversed, and put through a vocoder. And a lot of high end gets added to it, and a reverb gets automated in, because of course it does. And a layer with a glass break, which has a lot more high end on it. And I don't know why I did, because there's already like a glass breaking sort of effect here, but like, whatever. Also, the master is turned off. Or turned on, I mean. It normally doesn't clip that hard. But still pretty hard. But the car crash is responsible more for the low end impact, and the glass break in this is responsible for like the other stuff in between. And then as it rises, I'm adding like one of these fucking, I'm really getting into my like sort of like metalcore bag with this one or whatever. Super cool. It's just a serum. One oscillator, detunes, just going up. Nothing fancy, right? EQ'd a bit, obviously, to shape it. You know? Besides the reverb that I add later, it's a high pass and a nonlinear filter. And then we bring the high end back in, and then kind of do a bit of a duck where the resonance was created. So it's like all like, you know, characteristic and fuzzy. And then I'm automating the dry and the wet. Or I guess as I named it here, the fuck and the me. I don't know why I was so pissed when I was making that, but I guess I was. And then the coup de grace. I can't speak French. I should have said Italian and made it funnier, but jokes passed. I'm gonna get super claimed for this. This is like, it's being processed Again, the same way, single band compression into multi-band compression. I'm not even gonna like fucking go into like step by step what it is. No bit crushing this time around though. After these two, it sounds. We get it. I'm gonna get so claimed for this. I'm probably gonna have to fucking remove the audio and post like on some bullshit. And if I do, then I'm sorry. I'm sorry. A crazy amount of high end followed by a de-esser. Which you can't hear, actually. I'm like, huh, why does it not sound processed at all? That's why. No, shut up. There we go. Super compressed. And then we bring the volume way back up and put it through a de-esser. Real compressed. And then we make it louder. And then we distort the crap out of it. You know, not the crap out of it, but like enough to give it some crunch. And then parallel bullshit. Sometimes I do some parallel compression, or in this case, parallel saturation, because I'm feeling fancy. And the idea is you create a floor of super distorted noise. You know, and then and then like let the other signal come through afterwards. So you get a really distorted sound, but you still get the fidelity of the vocal itself. So you can still hear like what's being said, but there's some crunch there. This is a very old effect. So old, in fact. Whatever. I won't even go into it. It's too revealing. But classified. But then I do an egregious amount of high passing. And then the balance at the end to shut it the fuck up later when I need to. And it already comes with this, like, you know, which is great because I don't have to do any extra work. And then for the second part, I layer in the chorus in the background of, not really in the background, it's the same. Oh, it is it's on different tracks. Okay, cool. Very walkie-talkie. Very walkie-talkie. That's just like a nice background vocal. If I really wanted to be nerdy with it, I would like pan the stereo or something, but I didn't for some reason. But again, this is an older track, right? So I guess, you know, my brain was in a different headspace when I was putting everything together. Genuinely, one of the coolest things I have made, in my opinion, just because I got to realize a vision. And that's always a fun thing to do. Whenever you have a thing in mind and you make it and it sounds more or less how you wanted it to. Now, I will make a confession. I cheated. So normally, the part is meant to be played in a half step down, like standard, but a half step down, right? And it's like it's a power chord, like a low D sharp, and then it would be the notes, then it's like fucking 4 frets apart, and on like the lowest part of the neck. So your index finger and your pinky are stretched the fuck out playing it. And if you want to transition from power chord to up there, if I had not had a webcam, but if I looked good, I would just show you, but I can't. So to transition from power chord to is really hard to do. Also, this is impossible to do. Where you hear the low string ring out and like fucking the power chord still kind of playing. And here's how I cheated. I tuned it to drop, I guess it would be drop C sharp, right? Because it would be drop D, but half a step down. So that I could just play the power chord open and then do the shit on like the higher end of the strings a lot easier, and like I didn't have to do a crazy ass transition with my fingers to get it to sound clean. It's how it sounds originally. Wait, I'm just gonna play both for my own amusement, just because I'm curious. And yeah, it does make me wish the whole song was slower and also tuned down this low, because this is heavy as shit. Wait, why is it like out of time? Oh, because I'm so stupid. Nope. Super cool. But then I had to like pitch it up so I could bring it back into the pitch it's meant to be for the song, which also means I had to like record at a slower BPM so that when I resampled it, it would line up. And if you notice, the harmonic is different. It sounds like an octave, but over here, it's a whole different shit. Because I took from the recording of the first idea, which sounded like this. Which still sounds kind of cool, but I would like listen to it later. I'm just like, I don't know. I have a different idea, and that different idea was that da 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 da, which just sounds so much sicker. You know what I mean? It just sounds so much sicker. But because the reason why the harmonics are different in these two takes is because when I'm tuned into standard, these harmonics, specifically this, I think it's cleaner here. It's on the 5th fret of, I think, the 3 and the 2 string, or maybe the 2 and the 1. I don't have my guitar like on me right now. It's in the corner over there in its case, and I don't want to get it out and like dust it and clean it and then do an example and then dust it and clean it again and put it away. I have a whole regimen to keep it like maintained. But you can only get those harmonics when you're tuned in standard, or I guess, you know, a half step down standard, right? And if I'm tuned flat, the harmonics would sound like they are 2 notes above where I'd actually want them to be. Unless I did some very fancy shit where I fretted the notes I actually wanted to hit, and then went up 12 frets from there and like manually did the harmonics, if you know what I'm talking about. Again, I have to show you to actually explain what that means. But you can kind of, you know, get a harmonic of any note you want that way. But it's also really hard to do, and it requires a crazy transition, and I'm not Ichiganito, I'm not Tim Henson, I'm not fucking, oh no, the guitarist from Chan, Mario Camarena, that's his name. I'm not any of these people, so I can't just do that on a whim. It would take me forever, and it already took me forever to track this. And as you can see, there are a lot of cuts in here because I'm not moving the sections over to make them more on beat. I'm just taking iterations, because I would record the whole thing twice. which means that if I fucked up later in the take, I can take an earlier part of the take, and if I fucked up twice, I have to re-record the whole thing, you know? Because I don't really tend to do punch-ins. I just kind of do it all in a flow to like keep it sounding natural when I do eventually move everything over into the place it needs to be. And there are a lot of instances where I had to like take later takes and move them earlier and all this sort of stuff to make everything sound, you know, clean. Because there are instances where like certain strings are ringing out that I don't want to ring out. Like there. Like you can hear the 3 string or the G string, I guess it would be A sharp. No, D F sharp. Oh my god, I don't know my fucking alphabet. My fucking god, I'm stupid sometimes. But you can hear that string ring out, and that sounds terrible. On both takes. I'll record everything twice, as in like, because it repeats, but also I have to record it again twice. So it's like 4 times for each ear. And god, there are so many recordings of this. Nope, that's pre-trans me. Okay, they're numbered so differently for some reason. They're like in between all these random ass untitled ones. So I'm just gonna go through some shit that I don't want to go through if I fucking if I click on the wrong one. Don't worry about what you just heard though. Do not worry about that. Anyway, that's what I'm just gonna start with. I cheated my ass off to get this. To get it sounding the way I wanted it to. Right. So now we can actually fucking break down what's happening. You know. After all that guitar rant, which you might not understand unless you play the instrument and can visualize what I'm talking about. But like, yeah, that's just more proof that I'm not by any stretch of the word a session musician, a studio musician or anything. You know, because I just don't practice nearly enough. There was a period of time there where I was practicing like every other day just to learn some like Chan songs and things like that to get my chops up and things like that. But you know, I just don't have the time as much anymore because it's like there's so many things I want to get good at, and also I need a job, and I'm spending a lot of time trying to find a job. Now the breakdown, drums. What I'm doing here is I'm changing the kick pattern, not every single time, but like 3 times. It's the same for 1 and 2, but for 3 and 4, they get different. This is like, and then this is like a sort of deal. And this double pedal action is a little offbeat because it's just to make it sound more natural. But that's what I do to keep the groove a little fresh, because otherwise it sounds repetitive, right? You know, like the different rhythms and the chugging. You know. To keep it sounding fresh. So, I know that the drums are on a different bus entirely, but I think they're, for all intents and purposes, the exact fucking same. Am I crazy to think that? I'm pretty sure they're basically the same. Maybe, oh no, the compressor is slightly different on this. Like I increased the attack a little bit, but changed the curve to be 1 instead of 3. Which does have a different effect on how the compressor, you know, reacts and compresses. No shit. It's better visualized than heard. But if you have ears, you kind of know, like, well, 3 is to let the transients poke out a lot more, in my opinion. And 1 doesn't do that as much, which is why I increased the attack, but it also handles release differently in a way that I thought was more favorable for this part. Like, it's a lot more, I don't know, it doesn't curve up, it just kind of goes up, whereas this... You see, even though the release, I'm pretty sure, is the same, and the sustain is the same. This has more of a more of like a smoother ramp up, which, you know, it takes a longer time to get back to normal. So it's a bit more compressed, but also happens later. Which in a lot of cases it's just better compression, like for drums and stuff like that. Welcome back. And I don't know, I just chose one for this. But yeah, very, very simple break. I think what is this? Oh yeah. I had a way more ambitious idea for how to do the breakdown, and I could not for the life of me think of a guitar part that goes over that. And so I'm just like, let's make it twice as fast and, you know, cut the bullshit. Awesome. Okay, cool. And then we can go into the processing of these guitars, which is actually the exact same as before. The only thing that changes the bass. It's the exact same patch as this. Maybe a different pickup. I always forget which pickups I use whenever I'm recording. I just kind of pick one that I think sounds good. I know I didn't use the neck one because I think that would make the low end sound too pronounced, and then it wouldn't you know, distort the high end in a way that I wanted. But the bass is ever so slightly different. I think the patch is exactly the same. I'm pretty sure it's exactly the same. Yeah. Except for I add a noise gate with the limiter noise gate for some reason. I guess I just didn't feel like opening a Maximus for this because it would take more CPU. But yeah, it's the same thing. It's just the guitar pitched down a whole octave. You know, with all this shit on it. And then I changed the EQ from whatever it was here. I just add another EQ to make it sound way subbier. Because before it was like, you know, normal sort of. Distorted bass. But then when it gets to this, it's way subbier. Why? I don't know. I just decided that would be the case. And then I start putting in some synth fills. All right, so this thing really cool. Really cool. It's just a again, I could have used 3x oscillator for this, but I like working with the ADSR and Serum as opposed to 3x oscillator. Because it's just better for me. And I did use mono because I figured it would be too much if I didn't. I don't know why, because I was going to add reverb anyway. I guess that was the idea. And with reverb, it would sound crazy. Like, you wouldn't be able to hear the individual notes. It would just be, like, too washed out. Hi, Traviaga. Oh, welcome. Traviaga. Travi, not Travy. It looks more like Travy for some reason. I guess because if you replace the T with a G, it would be gravy. I don't know. The English language is fucking stupid. Welcome to the stream. I'm at the tail end of song 5 out of 6 on my EP is what I'm breaking down currently. Very cinematic. Only because it's a whole fucking guitar breakdown at the end, which is not traditionally seen in hyperflip. Hey, no one does it like fembread. My god. Right. So, the real the piece of this whole sound is this delay here, which if you change it's a delay plugin, but with a built-in reverb function if you make the diffusion knobs this way, and if you change this knob while there's reverb present, you change the pitch of the tail. And that's what that's doing. It's very subtle. You can barely hear it in the final mix, but it sounds pretty cool. And then I compress it. I do all the processing after the reverb because, I don't know, I felt quirky this time. So this would like help it duck, a lot of compression. You know, which makes the reverb sound louder, but maintains the fidelity of the original notes. And then I distort it. And then I distort it again with the non-linear. I'm a girl, first of all. Second of all, don't talk about that in here unless you want to get timed out, and I'm dead serious. If you like my other music, like my other music. Just don't talk about that shit. Please, thanks. Now, saturation with a non-linear filter on max drive again, which creates a nice sort of distortion sound, and then I bring the high end back, decrease 300 for some reason, and decrease the resonance that the nonlinear filter added. Super cool. And then there's this shit. Hero, what? Yo, I'm about to time you out, bruh. Stop acting stupid. Like, I'm dead serious. I'm a girl. Oh my god, it's crazy. So, this is a super saw, but not super. It's just like one octave, one detune layer. It's not even this, is it? It's this. No, it's two octaves. Okay, I was about to say, what the hell? Pretty standard stuff, a lot of release, you know, a lot of room. I figured that just adding it in like this, it would fit, but it didn't when I did. So, because it does stick out like a sore thumb. You know what I mean? It's like it's not meant to be there. I started to get the idea, yo. Awesome. My bagging, all good. What's it called? So first we EQ this shit to get rid of all the high end. That's especially egregious because a lot of the high ends when it comes to like guitar stuff is mainly like distortion from the guitars and everything like that and the drums. And so putting in a synth, you always run the risk of it sounding unnatural because of the high end that it incurs. So EQing that is a nice way to like, you know, kind of mitigate that a little bit. And then I, you know, add like a little walkie-talkie sort of frequencies, all the 3K stuff, you know, make it fit in with the guitars, decrease the lows in like a very smooth way. Saturated as per usual. And then I don't even bring the high end back because I'm like, I don't really need to. Most of the note information or like the real important stuff is like kind of here in the annoying 1 kilohertz range. You know, not too complicated, just enough of like a synth layer to make things interesting. And of course, I'm doing the good old fashioned bubble up with a vocoder sort of deal, but I'm also doing can't even wait, is it not? You can barely hear it actually. I think I just turned it way down because it was not playing well with everything. Like you can hear it creating mud and distorting everything, but you can't hear it itself, which is kind of a flaw. Like if I really cared about it, I would EQ it in a way where you could at least like hear the distorted part of it. But I got lazy in trying to make it fit and just kind of hid it away. But it is like a classic in these sort of genres of breakdowns and stuff. That low fucking you get the idea. And then half two of this, I add in an ARP. Which is, again, the same amp patches as the ARP from before, but instead with a crazy high pass on it. And just a whole different... I did just choose a different ARP for this. You can hear how shit I actually am if you take the distortion off, which is bad. The goal is to have a clean tone when you're not plugged into anything, but, you know, we can only be so human. And then by this point, Miku comes back in for a second feature. And then I have a patcher preset called For the Next Parts, because that's what this is, the next part. Here it is. And this preset is essentially just doing a wet-dry split with the delay. Doing like a walkie-talkie sort of thing with the delay signal itself. You know. And I guess I'm also automating in the feedback level. Oh yeah, I automated in the feedback level so that in the outro it just, you know, delays out. Imagine if you add beatbox. I don't know if that would fit here. And then I'm EQing out like the real annoying parts, because like it doesn't really need to be that forward in the mix. It's just kind of providing more background vocal. You know, and just like a bit more variety for the second half of this. And yeah, that's everything. Any questions? Any quebbins? Any inquiries? Things I might have glossed over? I went kind of fast because I knew this would take a long time, and I was right. It did. It's been over 2 hours, which is a very long stream for me. I usually like to cut it down to 90 minutes, but, you know, sometimes what is asked of me allots more time than 90 minutes. I'm gonna assume that's a no, which is fine. Now if you want to listen to the full song, it's on SoundCloud right now. It's been on SoundCloud for like a fucking week. And this shit has no motion. I could use the help. And I'm pretty sure I put the link in the description, like near the top. And yeah, Thursday's stream will be going over the last track in the EP. Put it in motion chat. Kid named Emotion. Alright, nah, but what's it called? Yeah, Thursday's stream will be the last track on the EP, and then we can get back to our regularly scheduled programming of making some bullshit live on stream, which I don't know if it's more or less interesting than what I'm currently doing, but I know that what I'm currently doing doesn't have a high chat rate, which is fine. I'm assuming I'm just providing a good podcast backdrop for those who want to listen and get jump scared by the occasional times that I play the damn thing and it's really fucking loud. But But yeah, and members who want the FLP, I didn't get the FLP for the last track because I was working on something right afterwards, and you know my brain was in a bunch of different places, and I didn't really get around to it. So I will get around to it, and also put this in the members only section of my Discord server for those who actually get around to downloading those FLPs to see what's up and maybe steal some sounds from me or some presets or whatever, which is really the goal. You know, we learn from each other, right? Can't wait to see the Pride Month flip get finished. The last one is insane. It is insane. I added a bit more to it, to justify it. Like, it was did I put it in? Hold on, during V-Day. Did I render it? Maybe I did. That's what I did. So it's like an actual like pre-drop. So you know, and I wasn't joking about that SpongeBob vocal. I did add it. And it kind of works. Not fully works, but it kind of works. It's pretty funny. You can slightly hear the beeps of what would be before the what the fuck sample, which I also added into. I probably should have kept this open during B-Day. I can't type. You know, a calm 2.5 lefts. A calm 2.5 lefts. But yeah. All right. That's that. Thank you for sticking around. I'll see you on Thursday at midnight. And hopefully, you know, it's a good one. Join the Discord. Link is in the description. And yeah, support me in Bandcamp. I need the fucking money. I'm so broke, dude.